YouTubers, and welcome back to the Ultimate channel. It's been a while since I put anything on, so anyway, there's been a few new subscribers to the channel. I'd like to welcome those folks on board, and of course all the returning folks that are always interested in what's going on here in the shop. Well, today we're going to, in the title you saw that woodworkers should pay attention. Now granted, this is a machine shop setting, but that doesn't mean it doesn't apply to woodworkers. And today we're going to be using a tool that is universal. It's the hole saw, and this is something that woodworkers should take an interest in too, because the principles that we're going to be going through, the steps for making rings like this are the same essentially as the steel ones. Now let me bring you in here a little closer and show you. Got just rings that we cut out of this piece of channel iron right here for a different project that's dog-ass boring, so I won't bore you with that. But the principle on this is the same for wood, and what we're going to do is, like I say, cut rings. And so we're going to start off with the hole saw. We'll take a closer look at the tool here as well. So let's start off by, I'm going to break this up. I got the footage already recorded, and so I'm going to break it up and narrate in between so you guys can, see my ugly mug or my beautiful face, whatever you want to call it, haha. Anyway, and do some explanation on it. So the first step is to drill the center hole with the bit in the drill bit in the arbor of the hole saw. And then the next step is to slow it down. So here we go. We're going to drill the hole for the center right now. Now we're going to start into a cut, but we're not going to go all the way through, and there's a reason for this. Now the center drill on these arbors serve also as a guide. These hole saws, when they get, especially these bigger ones, when they get some diameter to them, they'll try to act like a bell. They'll weeble wobble on the arbor a little bit. You screw them on, and then you got this pinned sleeve or pinned ring on here that you tighten down with a nut, and in between that nut and the pinned ring there's a O-ring, a rubber O-ring, and so that gives it a little give to it. So then the next step, of course, like I said, is sinking into the material itself with the larger saw, like we're just going to see right here. So then we'll take the larger saw off. We're going to run the quill all the way back up and take this larger saw off and put the center saw on, because we're making a ring here. We're going to put on a smaller diameter saw, and then go back in just like this. to adjust our feeds, our rotation speed. So if you have, now these kind of saws work only in drill presses and mills that have variable speed capabilities, say for instance like the mill right here. Or the drill press like this. And so you can also use them of course in a handheld drill. You have to have variable speed on your drill. A single speed drill chances are it will ruin the whole saw. So now we're going to take out the center hole. And so now that we've taken out the center hole, now it's time to switch back, adjust the speed, and finish cutting the ring. Here we have the finished cut ring. Of course, you saw. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind: these things are, pretty smoking hot from the friction. With steel, you want to add a little Wiener Schleider as you get the tool in. Now, one of the things that I was going to also point out: when you start in on the cut, you'll see long curly chips like this. The chips get progressively finer, and that's because the chips are continuously recycled in the cut, and then they're not ejected like you would have, say, with an annular cutter that has relief grooves in it, or flutes that actually transport the chips up out of the cut. So you get a continual action of cutting and recutting of the chips, and that's why they get finer and finer. And then, of course, the harmonics. Now, here's an interesting shot. The harmonics in here create ejection patterns in the work that get a little bit interesting. As you noticed on the right-hand side, there's a little bit of the shot. You can see the pile of chips building up, and then you can see them diving back down into the cut and then coming back up in a waveform up out of the cut on the left-hand side. That's called harmonics, and you can hear it in the chatter of the saw as it's going into the material. Keep in mind with wood, same thing. It'll do the exact same thing. The steps that you're going to go through to make a ring in wood are exactly the same as what you just saw here in the steel. So let's bring the camera around and show you up a little, show a close-up view of the saw and its components. I'll take it out of the chuck and we'll kind of tear it down and go through it a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to take the saw out of the chuck. It had tightened up because it stalled the bit slightly. These all-brick chucks, they like to tighten up. Now, let's see if we can see that. Oops, get back in frame. Lennox is the premier manufacturer of hole saws. Their product is probably about the best out there on the market. There's some cheap Chinese knockoffs, and again, that's exactly what they are, cheap Chinese knockoffs. Anyway, you have on the periphery of the hole saw, you have these slots here, and these serve several functions. One is to cool the saw, and then two is allow any chip buildup to exit from the saw as it's working. The other thing is, as you saw in there, is to actually stick a screwdriver in and eject the core, the plug that you're cutting out of here with the saw. Now these holes up here are for arbors. As you can see, there's 4 in the middle. This is for the arbor. So what these out here are for, I'm guessing, is a larger arbor. I don't know for sure, but you can also probably use a screwdriver to eject the plug from the larger ones. Now these smaller ones only have holes for the arbor itself, or for the pinned ring that's on the arbor. So you'd have to definitely use the slots in the hole saw in order to eject the plug. Now you don't want to pry or get any twisting action on this. You want to exact as much downward pressure, straight downward pressure, as you can to eject the plug. Otherwise you run the risk of actually shearing the arbor off, and that's happened to me before, so that's the reason I say that. Now here's our little nut here. You just back that off until it hits the snap ring up here, and you just pull the pinned ring back, and now you can spin the arbor right off. There's a thread right here, and so it just comes apart real easy like that. Now these arbors also have a drill bit in the center, as I mentioned before, and somewhere, yeah, right here is a set screw. Let's see if we can see that. It's kind of hard to see, but if you can't see it, trust me, it's in there. I'm going to try and rotate it. There you go. That set screw there holds this drill bit in the arbor, so these can be changed out and resharpened. Now there's flat sides, 3 of them milled into the into the base of the drill bit, so that way they don't spin in the arbor and get all boogered up, and then you'd never get them out again. So if you ever have to use in a pinch a regular drill bit, you might want to just take a grinder real quick and put a little flat edge on there so that the thing doesn't spin in the arbor. So anyway, that's the buildup of this, and like I said, these larger bits, when they're mounted on the arbor like this, you can see there's let me try and get this back on here. There is a noticeable amount of play, and when you tighten this nut up, it takes some of that out of there, but there's still enough in there because the force of the machine, or the power of the machine, is such that it's going to exploit that amount of play in there through the rubber O-ring. And so you'll hear it grinding like right now. that grinding sound is the chips building up in the cut, stalling out the saw. Now let me see if I can get in here close enough. You have some set on these teeth. This one is just a straight one, and this one's bent slightly outward. And so they alternate a little inside, outside. And so, let's see here. I'm trying to get that in there. You can't really see that. Now this saw has a tooth busted out of it, so you got to be extremely careful. And that's the reason this one was grinding a little bit, is because there was an excessive amount of chips that built up. So the set is in there to actually create a clearance between the body of the saw and the material you're cutting through. Same thing on the inside. And so that's the reason the chips get recycled, is because there are no relief, there's no flutes on these saws. The only mechanism actually ejecting the chips is the amount of chips being generated, basically forcing the other ones above it up out of the cut. And so you got to be careful with these things when you're feeding down, to not give them. You can't use the automatic feed on, like these mills here, this Bridgeport. It has an automatic quill feed, and so you can't use these on those. You can't use the automatic feed or the quill feed on these, because you will you'll stall this out and ruin this. Now, we're going to take a look here at there's most of the saws that you buy, if you buy them individually, on the packaging they'll show you a little diagram of what you can expect. So when you're working with, let's see, I think this is stainless, so you're going to be turning 75 RPMs. This is the size, 2 1/4 or 57 millimeters. So when you're working with stainless or solid material, you're looking at 75 RPM. Black iron, 100. This looks like aluminum at 150. Copper and such, 225, and brass, 200. Now, of course, this is also suitable for wood. And so you can see here they have a speed slot. This is a different style than what we just saw. You can buy these as a kit. They're kind of spendy as a kit, but I bought them individually as well. And so you can see you got a little way to pry the plug up out of there. This one's been resharpened. Our sharpening service can actually do these, as you can see, it's Lennox. And so, yes, these are suitable for wood, and so you can make tires and stuff for your toy trains and trucks and cars and what have you out of different woods, and then put them together. So anyway, let's see what else. So let's take a look at the RPM table here, and it gives you, usually they come with, the kit comes with an RPM table, so let's take a look. And so on the back of the saw, it'll give you the size, and so all you have to do, this one is a 76 millimeter, and this one is, looks like 1.5 inches or 33 millimeters. So then you go to your drill press or your mill. So then we pick out the corresponding RPM or as close to it. Now, rule of thumb here, folks, if your machine doesn't have the fitting RPM, so the larger one took 80 RPMs on this, and so the closest I have is 67. So that's what I ran was 67 RPM for the large saw on it when it was cutting, and then 180, although this one, the smaller one, was supposed to run at 200. It's safe to go under, but in any case, don't ever go over. You know, if it's, you know, 5 or 6 RPM over or up to 10, that's fine, but you know, stay below the recommended speed if your machine doesn't have an infinite speed control where you can dial it in to just the right speed that the bit calls for. Anyway, I hope today's little episode of Zerks&Wheels was beneficial for you. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, comments, critiques, by all means, put them in the doobly-doo down there, as OVE says, down below, and let me know what's on your mind. There's always room for improvement, and so if there's any suggestions like that, by all means, let me know. I do my best. I do like to read the comments. You know, I read every one. I don't always answer all of them because some of them are so good that all you have to do is just give it a thumbs up. And when you see me give that thumbs up, that means I've read it, but no further comment really necessary because the comment is just, it's a standalone comment. And you know, a guy doesn't always have to have the last word on everything. So anyway, you know, your thoughts do come through, and I do appreciate any feedback that I do get from the viewers, and so anything you have to say is definitely duly appreciated. So with that, hope to see you again soon. Stay tuned. I've got more video coming up, well, the next couple of weeks. I've been kind of lazy. The new year is always, or the holiday season is always pretty busy for me here in the outfit I work for. There's jobs in the powerhouse that have to be done that can only be done when everything's shut down, so that's my busiest time of year, so I didn't get any chance to do any recording and such, but there's going to be some interesting videos coming up. So anyway, stay tuned, come back for more, and if you're new to the channel, just stumbling on in, you know, I hate to harp on this because everybody else does, just, you know, don't forget to subscribe and maybe give the video a thumbs up. Helps for the rating and, you know, idiotic YouTube and their crazy algorithms and stuff like that. So anyway, see you guys again soon.